I need you to knock some sense into me. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I enjoy listening to you. I don't always agree with everything.
All right. Enough of this persiflage.
So, you want my question?
I'm certainly not going to get myself in trouble by telling you what to do.
That makes great sense. Gosh, that's good.
That I overwhelm you with words and wisdom?
I've got 7 kids. I feel like I could call you every day.
Wait, you're telling me I'm wrong?
Yes, I am, Dr. Ray.
You just need to tune in to Dr. Ray, honey. He's got all the answers.
Am I right or am I right?
Probably.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
Very nice to have you with me. People ask me, what is my new book about? It's about reverse psychology. Marketing strategy slogan, don't buy it. There you go. Thank you for joining me. This is Look Back Friday. As always, we take previous calls from shows in the past, going back 2, 3, 4 months sometimes. And there's more to talk about. Obviously, when you have folks waiting in line, you can't spend 10, 12, 15 minutes on most calls. So you have to go after what is the salient point that you believe the caller is asking about or commenting about. A lot of times there are, some would call them rabbit trails that I would go off on, but I like to call them intelligent tangents. And so we save those intelligent tangents for Look Back Friday. Anything within the call that might need to be a little better explained, or a diagnosis that isn't so clear, but we had to skip past it real quick. Not that I'm going to make a diagnosis, but the word was used, and it was used as though everybody would understand it, and I didn't have time to stop and explain it. So those are all kinds of reasons. But the main reason, and I think if we get past all of this, what sounds like altruistic justification, is that it's selfish. I just want to talk more. St. Thomas Aquinas says, looking for motives, follow the self. Well, I think that fits here. Follow the self. I just want to say more. So we will do that. All right, now let me look at my possible monologues here that I wanted to... Oh, yes, I don't like that cliche. Have you heard the cliche? Familiarity breeds contempt. Ooh, that is a skeptical, cynical axiom, is it not? Familiarity breeds contempt. I got to believe the person who said that, it sounds like it's some author or philosopher type, was saying that when you get to know someone, know more about them, you see their humanness. Initially, most people can give a very favorable impression. It can be pleasant, nice. I hear this all the time when I listen to media people say things like, yeah, I know so-and-so. I had dinner with him and we sat at the same table. What a good guy. Just a great guy. And I'm thinking to myself, you were at the table with him for how long, an hour? Or even worse, well, you know, I bumped into him at a conference where I was, and we had a chance to chat for a few minutes, and I'll tell you what, just seemed like a delightful person. No, for that time, they were socially pleasant. That's what you know. You don't know anything else. You don't know about their morals. You don't know how they view the deeper subjects of life. So the person who says familiarity breeds contempt is really saying, when you get to know people, you will see their faults and their failings and their humanness, and naturally then, you won't like them as much. You won't want to be around them as much. Now, the person who said that, I got to believe, is not a Christian, because we Christians are asked to be tolerable of people's faults and failings. We are, for the most part. People don't have serious faults and failings that threaten our well-being or those we love. For the most part, they have faults and failings that are irritants and troublesome and inconvenient and unpleasant and maybe difficult. Yeah, okay. 92.65% of it comes in words. Nobody punches you in the face. So, to breed contempt means to say, as I get to know you, I won't like you. And I really don't have much tolerance for you being human. It's really kind of what it says. It's really sort of an ugly observation about the human condition. Familiarity breeds contempt. Have you ever had situations where as you got to know somebody better, you liked them more? You ever had that? Where you see qualities in them that are extremely admirable, virtuous, delightful, easygoing. Conversely, have you ever had people that initially you didn't like much, and then you realize, no, this person isn't like what I first thought. I was wrong about this person. I was wrong about who they are. I was wrong about what they think. I missed it. So familiarity undid contempt. Initially the dislike was there, and then it evaporated, it faded. Familiarity breeds contempt essentially means if you're going to like somebody, then you can't get to know them very well. I see this all the time. People say it all the time. They have decided that someone is just a delightful human being. They project all kinds of virtue and depth upon them, and they don't know them at all. And that's why they're so incredibly shocked if the person does something. If somebody comes into my office, and the guy has had an adulterous relationship and wants to leave his wife, and maybe a family member says, that's not him, that's not who he is. And I'll say, well, it is who he is in these circumstances. It wasn't who he was up to this point. See, they struggle because what they're familiar with, they form an impression, and then that impression they extrapolate to everything. And we do that a lot initially, and it's dangerous to do that. You know why? Because you can get disappointed. The person you thought was so delightful, so pleasant, so moral, so virtuous, so easygoing, so nice, so straightforward, so honest, you find out, oops, wow, where did that come from? It's not out of character for them, it's in character for them, it's just you didn't see that in your level of knowledge of them. You only knew them an inch deep. I've seen this happen with particular religious figures who preach really, really well. And they speak the truth of the church articulately. And then they get caught up in a ugly moral scandal. And the response of so many people, and I've even had to go on different shows explaining how this could be. The response of so many people is, but that's not who that person is. That's not who they are. And I say, that's who you thought they are on the basis of the way they talked. You didn't know them. You simply knew their media persona. Now, you hope, and I think this is generally true for most media personas in the Catholic world, their personal persona is pretty close to their public persona. Not always, though. And so the tendency is to get extremely disconcerted when you find out that that person is not what I thought. Well, all I'm saying is it is wonderful to have an initial positive impression of folks. You don't want to be the skeptic and say, yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I wonder what they're really like. No, you can have a positive impression, but you recognize the limits of your knowledge. That's the key. You recognize the limits of your knowledge. And familiarity breeds contempt only happens when you expected a whole lot different and didn't see different, and then you couldn't tolerate it. When I come back, we'll go to the past calls. I'm Dr. Ray. Now, why did I go off on that tangent? I don't know.
Dr. Ray has more great advice soon. Don't go anywhere.
Honey, did you ever call Mighty Dog Roofing of Ann Arbor for that free roof inspection?
I knew I forgot something.
Roof leaks can cause mold buildup or even roof collapse. Protect your family today by calling local Catholics Dan and Mary Flanagan at Mighty Dog Roofing for a free inspection of your roof, siding, or windows. Mighty Dog Roofing, 734-224-4916. That's 734-224-4916.
Resetting your password, unsubscribing from emails, printing anything. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with an auto owner's insurance independent agent, getting the right coverage for your business doesn't have to be one of them, so you can get back to more important things, like learning how that printer works. That's simple human sense.
Call Choice Insurance Agency at 734-641-4200.
Underwritten in part by the following nonprofit.
Are you paying high prices with a traditional health insurance company that pays for things that violate your conscience? There's an alternative available. Solidarity HealthShare is a community of faithful individuals and families that never share into immoral medical services, all while saving you money with prices starting as low as $85 per month for singles and $512 for families. Never fund another abortion with your healthcare dollars. Call 844-313-4999 to learn more.
Do you own popular index mutual funds or ETFs? If so, you're automatically own shares of companies that conflict with your moral beliefs. Ave Maria mutual funds are managed to conform to pro-life and pro-family values. Long-term investors can invest in the no-load Ave Maria mutual funds. The experienced professional portfolio managers make decisions based on investment fundamentals and pro-life values. You can learn more about Ave Maria mutual funds today at 866-AVE-MARIA or visit AveMariaFunds.com.
You're not supposed to lie to yourself, but I lie to myself. The biggest lie I tell myself is this. I don't need to write it down. I'll remember it. Yeah, you'd think after about 5,000 times of forgetting it that I would say, I better write that down. Cannot tell you how many times I've come up with an idea for a monologue, and I thought, okay, I'll remember that, no problem. And an hour later, it's gone. I wonder how many potential monologues I have lost because I didn't write them down. And then I tell my wife, say, honey, help me remember this. This is what I want to comment on in a monologue, and then I'll say the topic, and she'll say, you better write it down, Raymond. Oh, no, I'll remember it. 20-some years of doing this show, you'd think by now all my monologues have faded, that I said, oh, no, that's a good one. I want to talk about that. Gone. And never to come back either. That's the other thing. Not 3 days later, I don't say, well, all right, that came back to me. Nope. Gone. Let's talk to Jeff from Ohio about his 22-year-old adopted daughter.
My daughter was adopted. We brought her home from the hospital when she was a week old, and we raised her right, Catholic and all that, and she ended up, I don't know where she went. Actually, when her birth father, we went through Catholic Social Services, and so he's known her whole life as well. And when her birth father ended up getting married and having a baby, she kind of flipped the switch and ended up just kind of, I don't know.
Jeff, did she flip a switch, or did you see a lot of things that were indicating she was not absorbing the socialization and moralization you were trying to teach her, but you thought, okay, it's not too serious, and then as she got old enough to make her own decisions, she made some real bad ones?
Yes. Well, I never had, it was her cell phone, I believe. It's never out of her hand, but we've raised her very well, and we didn't, like I said, we didn't raise her bad, but she keeps saying she's adulting, and now that she's of age, she can make her own choices, and it's like everyone is really bad, and it's getting to me.
So she's equating adulting with being homeless.
I don't know. And she's been in and out of the hospital for suicidal attempts, and so I don't really know if she's playing us or if she really is suicidal. And I'm afraid to take that suicidal chance, but you just don't know which way to go.
Are you asking
if this guy, and we had a little battle the other day, and
are you asking to bring her back home, Jeff?
Excuse me?
Are you asking to bring her back home?
And my heart says yes, but we're enabling her if we do, because she'll keep doing the same thing over and over again.
So bringing her home is not an option?
Not really.
Okay. You're going to beat yourself up?
I would love to.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. You're going to beat yourself up if something bad happens to her and you say, we should have brought her home?
Pretty much.
You can't guarantee that, Jeff. If she's 22 and she says, leave me alone, I want to live my life however poorly and self-destructive it is, she's kept you from doing anything about it. So if something bad happens, you can't say, we could have stopped it. Who says?
Right.
I can't predict it. But in all likelihood, she's going to bounce around quite a bit more.
I mean, she's burned so many bridges now. She doesn't really have anywhere else to go. That's what I'm concerned about.
Where's she living?
I didn't talk to her since February, and then we did communicate, and she said they're living out of motels, and then the last 3 days they've been living in her car, and
so she's homeless.
Tearing at the.
What about the baby? Where's the baby?
There's no baby involved.
Oh, I thought you said she got pregnant.
No.
Oh.
No, we brought her home from the hospital when she was a week old.
I misunderstood. Now. Okay.
Now she's
by
22.
any chance, do you know anything about the history of her pregnancy, her birth mom's pregnancy?
Yeah, actually, the birth mother and birth father split up a year after she was born, and she tends to be turning out a lot like her mother, and she hasn't seen her mother since she was a year old. So.
Is there drug and alcohol? Was there drug and alcohol in the womb?
My daughter now, she's smoking weed. And
no, I mean when she was in the womb, was there drugs and alcohol? Birth mom.
No, I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt it, because I know the birth father is not into that at all.
Okay. Well, doesn't mean birth mom.
But what I'm thinking is...
Okay, so the issue here for you, Jeff, the issue here for you is what?
And my heart says I don't want her being homeless. But if we let her come back, it's going to be the same thing. She just won't do anything she's asked to do.
And how do you know she wants to come back?
I don't really know. She doesn't want to, but it's the last resort. She's lost every job because in and out of the hospital for a week at a time. So she doesn't really want to come back, but she can't hold a job down.
Well, if she's more content to live in her car than she is to come home because she doesn't like your rules, you're in a position of saying, "Dear Lord, keep her safe, and we're going to keep praying for her." That's what you have.
I did that the other day, and about 3 days into tormenting myself, I prayed to the Lord and said, I trust in you. I leave this up to you. And it was like a burden lifted off my shoulders, but then, I still worry.
Well, Jeff, it's like this. My friend, you are going to be tortured until you leave this earth, or until, God forbid, your daughter leaves this earth. You've got to continually remind yourself, I put him in the hands of God. I cannot control this. I do not want to live in this kind of distress day in and day out. You can't. This is one of the great struggles of the human condition. Having to accept helplessness. This young woman, given her history, is highly likely to continue along this path until something very devastating happens. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but if you're playing the odds, it certainly looks that way. He said an interesting thing. He said, she's looking a lot like her birth mom. Well, apparently the birth mom was not real put together either. Made a lot of bad decisions on the basis of probably some personality problems that are wired in. And the daughter, getting a lot of those genetics, has a certain way of conducting herself, of looking at life, of making decisions. But the hard part for Jeff, and you could hear it in his voice was quivering, that he couldn't do anything about it. That this young adult piles one bad move on top of another until she's living in her car. Now, it's interesting, he was calling from Ohio. Well, you can't really live in your car in Ohio in the wintertime. He said he hadn't talked to her since February, so I don't know exactly the date on that look-back call, but I think it was somewhere around May, so the beginning of summer. So the cold weather is not a worry for another several months. Of course, it is Ohio, so it could drop to 20 degrees at a moment's notice. But given that, he can't do much about it. He can bring her home, but he said it really won't change anything. So unless he says she can live here and do whatever she pleases in our home, because that is less bad than her being homeless, then we'll just have to do that. One, I don't think he wants to do that at all. Two, I don't think it would be helpful at all. And three, ultimately, I think it would probably result in her leaving, because at some point he, and if he's married, his wife, would have some rules, even minor, that she couldn't accept. I think the overall theme here is one that is dominant among parents who watch their adult children make a shambles of their lives, make all kinds of bad decisions. There's no doubt in my mind that happens a lot more than it used to in our culture. A lot more. Because there's just so many more opportunities. Drugs, alcohol, hypersexuality, technology, that give them that opportunity to do this. And if you don't have a brain that is really well put together, then you're going to make a lot of really self-defeating moves. Self-destructive moves. She's already been in and out of the hospital multiple times. He said something interesting, though. Did you hear it? I'm running out of time. Better get to it quick. We didn't raise her that way. But then he said that cell phone's never out of her hand. So the question becomes, when did she have the cell phone? Because I see parents in my office constantly who say, we didn't raise him that way. And I empathize with them. I say, I believe you. I know you didn't. But you underestimated what was against you. The smartphone came early, way too early, and the smartphone just took over, shaping them. The peer group, which was permitted, shaped them. Media shaped them. Music shaped them. So all of these things that were not good for them shaped them away from the things you're trying to teach. So many parents say, we didn't raise them that way. And I agree, you didn't. But you underestimated the power of what did. So the theme here from this call that I wanted to probably emphasize is that sometimes in this life, you're forced to accept your helplessness, particularly when it's with someone you love. Thank you for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. I'm so fascinated by statistics. I had several courses in statistics in grad school. I came across a study the other day. Listen to this. Apparently, 3 out of every 4 people make up 75% of the population. It's just, wow. You know, the stuff that you can find out with statistics. And then I ran across this one. Genetically, listen to this. This is as close to a perfect correlation as you're going to get. If your parents had no children, the odds are extremely high that neither will you. Yeah, look it up. Let's go to Lily from Texas, and she's talking about being a counselor in our society.
Let me give you a little background. First of all, I'm a senior, okay? And I'm kind of reinventing myself because I'm also widowed. And so right before COVID-19 struck, I had enrolled in mostly an online, but it was a hybrid master's degree plan in clinical mental health counseling administered by a well-known, but I will not name them, Catholic university, okay? And I completed probably like 3 or 4 of their 8-week semesters, and it was going okay. But then COVID happened, and I kind of panicked, and I stopped attending, okay? So I haven't been back to that program. But in the interim, since I've had a break, my conscience has been a little troubled because with everything in the world that the world is trying to shove down our throats that we are supposed to so-called, I'm doing air quotes, accept, you know, like gay marriage and transgenderism, all this stuff that we Catholics want to dismiss. We want to avoid it. Well, I'm wondering if I do finish the program and become a full-blown counselor, and I have people coming to me and they're deluded and they're confused by, oh, you know, I think I'm transgender, or I think my child is, or, you know, I'm a gay person living with my partner, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how am I, as a Catholic, supposed to counsel people and go home at night with a good conscience because I don't want to approve of a sinful lifestyle, no matter what it is. It could be a serial adulterer. I don't want to condone that, you know. And so the crux of the matter is I'm split right now in what I want to do because I've also felt an interest in pursuing a different master's to become a hospital chaplain. So there you go, Dr. Ray.
Well, there are options for you. First of all, it depends upon who hires you. If you're hired by a particular Christian organization, they may have the same conditions as you would. That's one. If you're hired by a secular group, they would probably say, no, you have to accept people where they are, and you have to help them accept who they are. Third thing is, and this is probably the easiest one, you can say, I'm not equipped to handle that particular issue. That's something beyond my skill level. I will refer you to another therapist in the building. You can do that.
Okay.
You can say that. You're not automatically. You don't automatically have to take everybody who walks in the door. If you say to yourself, I don't feel competent to handle that particular matter or that particular lifestyle, let me give you another referral. The other thing you can do, and there are certainly other things, you can ask individuals, what are their religious beliefs? What are their moral beliefs? That's certainly a fair question because it can interact heavily with whatever struggle they're having. That's one. Most people have some kind of religious connection, however delicate or tentative, within the problem that they're bringing to you. Another thing is this. When I was in grad school, they said, you do not ask, you do not pursue, you do not explore, because I went to a very secular university, a person's moral religious worldview. You don't do that. Well, obviously, that comes out. It comes out so much in counseling and in therapy because there are people who come in that their more religious worldview governs how they live. And their struggles may be because they're not living that way. That's just a fair topic for counseling. But a broader question is this, and she may run into this. People will say to me, you got someone in your office who wants to leave their spouse because they've met someone else and they're abandoning their family. And they really have no moral compunction about doing this. They don't see it as anything morally questionable. Their view is, this other person I like better, I may love in their mind, and therefore I deserve to be with them. That's the way it is. So what do you do, Dr. Ray? You can't approach this from, well, do you realize in God's eyes, because they don't care in God's eyes, even if they even care there's a God. So what do you do? Well, interesting thing about God's way of doing things, as you depart from them, you cause problems for yourself. Whether you acknowledge there's a God and God has a way of living that is very, very good for you on this earth is irrelevant, because it's like me jumping off a building. Well, I don't believe in gravity. Well, gravity believes in me. And gravity is going to make itself known in about a half a second. And so, what I do is I explore with them the potential outcomes of their decision. What will happen with your 15-year-old daughter? Will she want to have anything to do with you? No, she already doesn't want to talk to me. Okay, so you'll be leaving your daughter also. Does this woman that you're with or this man that you're with have children? Yes. 9-year-old, 6-year-old. How are they? Oh, they're very, very obnoxious, very bratty. Are you allowed to say anything? I try, but I got to be careful. So I explore complications that they hadn't either thought of or thought they could fix in making this decision, because to take it from a moral perspective would be irrelevant to them. They see nothing morally wrong with it. So were I to say, well, whether you do or you don't, there's a God who does, first of all, it wouldn't work if I'm trying to save that marriage. And second of all, then I become very directly religiously instructive. Now, if they're coming to me for that reason, it's acceptable. But if they're coming to me as a counselor who has certain skills and may be able to get them to think about this path they're on, then that's the direction I got to stick.
I just wanted to start and say that I really enjoy your show. I've been listening to EWTN and found your show, and I really love your wit. I like your humor. I just think that you're a funny guy.
Thank you for joining me. This is The Doctor Is In. This is Look Back Friday. Previous calls, and then more comments about those previous calls. Take a look at rather sad situation with Mike from New York. How to get back into the routine after his wife's sudden passing.
You know, my spouse very unexpectedly passed away a few months ago. And it kind of shook up the lives of myself and my two teenage sons. And we've sort of been getting our footing going. But, the calls, hearing the calls just struck me how important it is for me to connect with others and to hear similar other voices. And it just really shocked me to my core. And, but also I've noticed, because it's only been a few months, it's been hard to get footing, even with, like our family routine, and I'm blessed in so many ways, but like with parenting and so on. And so I guess the question is how to rebuild routines, sort of one step at a time. And I guess I say reconnect and talk with God, and just sort of how, when sort of the ship has been shaken up unexpectedly, how does one start to rebuild that routine, especially when it comes to parenting routines and family, and especially finding humor, which I love in life, and I hope God has I think God would appreciate a good sense of humor, but sort of building in even laughter and all that.
It's going to be a piece at a time, Mike. I talked with my wife about this. I say, honey, if you left first, the kids would be a lot more rocked than if I left first, because you've been so much an integral part of their life, and she runs the domestic front. And I said, I would have to learn how to do and be a part of some of these things that you naturally are good at. And I think that's where you're at, Mike. It's going to be a piece at a time. For example, whatever affection that your wife gave the kids, you're going to have to kick up your affection. The times that she would just find ways to talk with them or do things with them, you're going to have to pick and choose a few more of those times. You're going to have to watch out for the guilt, which is so very common when a spouse passes away. The surviving spouse becomes somewhat permissive in discipline because they say the kids have been rocked, and therefore I can't ask them to be respectful too. They're hurting. You got to be careful on that one. Probably find times to talk with the kids, because you got to figure, like you said, they're hurting too. This is out of nowhere. It's a juggle. It's a major juggle for you, Mike, especially since it's only a couple of months old. It's everything you can do just to kind of get your own head headed in a direction, much less to figure out how to intertwine now one parenthood where it was two for those times. What would be your biggest doubt that you could do now that your wife has passed?
One of the things that you spoke to was about going soft on the discipline a little bit. And my kids haven't, I don't think that they've sort of pushed the limits there, but I can see within myself that I could get a little lax there, and I get potential for that. I know that can be my Achilles heel. So I think that stuck to my mind. And I think, thankfully, we're close to our church community, and I'll be honest, they have been phenomenal. And so I think, it's sort of this moment-by-moment thing. And, I love the ability to just to connect with people and even just to find laughter and humor in the midst of chaos. So
don't feel guilty when
my laughter.
I was just getting ready to say that. Don't feel guilty when you laugh. That's one of the first things that people talk about when they've been grieving. Is it too early to laugh? If I laugh, will that show that I don't miss and love the person? What will people think? Do they think I'm not getting over this? No, laughing has nothing to do with it. If humor is a part of your life, for sure. I've even had spouses say to other spouses, how can you laugh? How can you laugh? After our son has passed away and it's been 5 months only and you're laughing. They take that as a sign of obviously I didn't care enough, or obviously I'm not grieving. It has nothing to do with it. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. That is who you are. And if you like to laugh, well, that's one of the ways you get past some of this. Absolutely. My experience, I think this is the experience of a lot of folks. C.S. Lewis talked about it. Grief is an overwhelming emotion. It is intense. Lewis said he drew a parallel between being extremely hungry with this empty sense in your gut, to try to describe it after he lost his wife of 4 years when he thought he was going to be a confirmed bachelor. I get people in my office who have lost a very close loved one, whether it's a spouse, a parent, or most devastating to most, a child. And I tell them, for the first year, you can't punish yourself for things that you don't do well that you thought you should have. You know, Mike mentioned, I could see myself getting lax with my discipline. Okay. That's good that you're aware of that, Mike, because now you can make corrections. Or the laugh. Somebody told me once in therapy that the first time they laughed after they lost a very close loved one, they felt terribly guilty. It's like, I haven't laughed in 5 months. And I laughed, and it was a legit laugh. It wasn't a kind of a forced it was an actual deep down belly laugh, and they thought, oh boy, I don't know. What does that mean? Doesn't mean anything. It means whatever you experienced was funny. That's what it means. Doesn't mean disloyalty toward the person you lost. I've had people say to me, in grief, for a year they put one foot in front of the other. They went on autopilot, doing the day-to-day things of life that at one time gave them joy or satisfaction, but don't so much now, or at all. And they worry that that's the way it's going to always be, always. And fortunately, God wired into us a normal resilience. Sometimes I'll say to my clients, you realize a year from now, it will not be this intense. And they'll say, I can't imagine that. I just can't imagine that. I go, it won't. It will not. You may still miss deeply. You may still cry unpredictably. But that gut-wrenching, clamping, I don't get any satisfaction out of doing anything anymore. Nothing is meaningful. It will be tapering. It will. It's just because I had a friend one time. He was a client actually at the day treatment center in Brecksville, and he said something interesting. We were in a group, and I think it captures the trajectory of grief. He said, you can't every day relive your grandmother's funeral. And I know what he meant. He said, if you do that, then you're keeping it alive in your head with all kinds of thoughts, as opposed to the grief process, which will, in most cases, eventually loosen its grip. And that's the one thing you got to look forward to. I wish I could have told Mike that during the call, but I was so moved by his call. Teenage boys with a wife suddenly passing away, accident or stroke or something out of nowhere. And you could see he wanted to resume normal existence, but he wasn't sure what that would look like. And only being a couple months prior, I would expect that right now any kind of normality to his day-to-day life would not be there. It would be something where he would have to, in essence, force himself to act through routine, even though he didn't feel at all like acting through that. Maybe going to one of his kids' games, which he so much enjoyed before, now is just reminded there's nobody sitting next to him. Or he looks at the game, and what was so important 3 months ago about that game, now he recognizes in the overall context of things doesn't have that kind of importance anymore. But you have to have hope and look forward to the fact that this is not going to control your life forever. I've had people that it has, but they are a distinct minority of folks, and there's other reasons for it. I better take a break.
This program brought to you in part by Ave Maria, Florida, a big kind of small town where golf carts take you everywhere and there's always something fun around the corner. Discover championship golf, resort-style amenities, and a town center full of shopping and dining. With Ave Maria University and Ave Maria Catholic Church at its heart, it's a community full of connection and charm. More than 25 model homes are available for viewing. More information can be found at AveMaria.com. That's AveMaria.com.
Food for the Journey, Sister Ann Shields.
And trust is something that we're lacking these days. We don't have much trust in anyone, let alone the God we cannot see. And yet, if by grace and by the work of the Holy Spirit in us, by baptism and by confirmation, we ask the Lord just very simply, increase my faith. Increase my faith. God will give you eyes to see and ears to hear His action in your lives. You'll penetrate through the darkness, through the difficulty, and you'll begin to see. It's a walk by faith, but you'll begin to see, and God will give you confidence and strength to follow Him and to do it His way. It's not easy, but God will supply the faith if we ask for it. If I fix my gaze on Him now, I begin to experience more and more His action in our lives. You know, we've got to be attentive. God doesn't come in with a sledgehammer. He comes in with this small, still voice. We need to become sensitive and attentive. And if we ask the Holy Spirit, He will give it to us. Just keep asking.
Food for the Journey with Sister Ann Shields can be now heard on the audio archives page at AveMariaRadio.net.
Moving toward the end of the show here on Look Back Friday on The Doctor Is In. Not enough time. Those Look Back questions typically average between about 4 and 6 minutes apiece in their original airing. So we don't have time. Andrew Kruchek, my producer man, does a very capable job of editing them down to usable for Look Back Friday. As I am wont to do, and I'm delighted to do, I get a chance to read something from C.S. Lewis, and this speaks to me as a shrink. God makes each soul unique. If He had no use for all of these differences, I do not see why He should have created more souls than one. Be sure that the ins and outs of your individuality are no mystery to Him, and one day they will no longer be a mystery to you. As a psychologist, I kind of got a front row seat to the absolutely beyond limits differences in personalities, in people. The way they look at things, the way they think about things, the way they make decisions, what they believe are valuable, what they don't believe are valuable, how one person can be an absolute saint seeking God, and another person can be a virulent atheist. Wide diversity in personalities. So much so that I'm not really surprised anymore by what the human condition is capable of choosing, doing, living, ignoring. But that raises the question, of course, you'd have to be an infinite being to sort through all of it. How much is one person responsible over another? How much did one person even have a chance? How much is one person totally blameworthy? Or what are the circumstances that God weighs in judging that soul? Only an infinite being could do that. I don't care how smart you are as a human, you can't do it. There's too much that enters into making a person the way they are. Their wiring, their genetics, their brain capacity, their neurology, their history, their choices, the love in their lives, the love not in their lives. It goes on and on and on and on. And Lewis acknowledges it. He says, look, he makes all kinds of different souls. Otherwise, he'd just make one. We'd all be like. And that's it. Be real easy. But he doesn't. And I believe that he can sort through it. Our church teaches he can sort through it, so there's not my individual belief. If he couldn't, we would just have to have a very limited view of who is going to heaven, who's gone to hell. I'm sure glad that we have an infinite God that can judge all these things. He knows them all. As Lewis says, he knows them all better than we do, even about ourselves. Although, I think I need to go through purgatory to get rid of a lot of the stuff, because I don't want to see me exactly as I am. I want to be different in heaven. Thank you for joining me here. Appreciate it so very much. One eternal walk. Your walk with God. Don't let go.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.
The end.